Welcome to Trentendo. I am Trentendo, but today we're not playing Nintendo, and I am me, and you are you, and we are we, but we're not playing the we because the we doesn't play DVDs. We're doing a movie marathon. Today we're doing a marathon of the Edgar Wright movies, and I know it seems like I should be excited for those because those are literally all amazing movies, and I am pumped. If you can't tell. But I also decided, since it's the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy, I picked up some of these ice cream cones. The reason that these ever existed in Edgar Wright's movie is a friend told him that it was the Cornetto ones are a cure for a hangover. And so I was like, I should test that out. I mean, these aren't the same flavors, or the same brand.
It's ice cream.
I don't know if they have like cocaine or some of the same alcohol that you were drinking in the ones in England, but the ones here, it's ice cream and a cone and chocolate and a bunch of bullcrap. We even got some of the strawberry ones for Shaun of the Dead, which is where we're starting.
He looks great, doesn't he?
So I made sure to stay up as late as I could and drink as much as I could last night for science.
You want me to read it for you?
No, I got it. We're going to be starting with Shaun of the Dead at 99 minutes. Hot Fuzz, which has 121 minutes. Got Pilgrim versus the World, 112 minutes. World's End at 109 minutes. And then Baby Driver at 113 minutes. So it's kind of an easy, this is an easy marathon.
Yeah, and we know they're good, so it's going to be easy to watch too.
9 hours and some change, and we like all of them. I'm excited. I haven't watched Shaun of the Dead in a long time, so it'll be nice to venture back into that.
Shaun of the Dead, Baby Driver. I never saw Baby Driver yet, and I'm really excited for it, so how was it?
Hard as a rock. Yeah, Baby Driver's good. It's a fun one. It's a good one to end on, too.
Yeah, boy!
There's so much dust on that. I didn't think about that either. All right, well, we just watched Shaun of the Dead, and I feel way better than I did. The ice cream might have helped. I finished it, was like, you know what, I feel a little bit better. If you're hungover and you have the option to eat an ice cream cone, go for it. So what'd you think about Shaun of the Dead, man?
It's a great movie. It's classic. I was surprised how much repetition was in it. There was another scene at the beginning where Shaun is giving a speech at his work, and then one of the kids was like on a cell phone. Later, Ed ended up getting a phone call in the middle of them trying to get into the bar, and it's the exact same kind of scene, different situation. It's every single scene seems to have been replicated later on in different circumstances.
When he first goes to the store for the very first time, that's replicated the next day.
Yep.
The other group, it's the doppelgangers. It's the same people. Yeah, it's all the same. That's what Edgar does. Is he references his own things in the movies, and then the things that aren't a reference to something else in the movie is a reference to an actual movie that exists somewhere else.
Yeah.
I had forgotten how legitimately funny this movie is. I remember all the stuff, all the references and things like that, because that's what I think about. I'm like, wow, it's a really well-constructed movie. But I was laughing my ass off at it. And I've seen it, I don't know, 30 times? Not that many, but it's a good way to start out a marathon as well.
It doesn't feel dated or old.
Surprisingly not, for being like over a decade old.
Yeah.
So, all right, we put it out there that we're watching Shaun of the Dead, starting the marathon. You got any, you got comments and stuff?
Nope.
Katie said you've got red on you.
Oh, did she?
Yeah. Is it about to be 1 o'clock?
Yeah, it's almost one.
God, I'm so sorry I got it off to a fucking late start this morning. I don't know if I said it in the other part, but I wanted to get drunk to try and get a hangover for this, and I slept right through all 3 of my alarms and Kevin ringing the doorbell.
Oh, I was ringing like a madman.
What time would you say you got here? About 10:30? Before?
9:30, 10. Oh, 10 probably.
Yeah, about 10. So I just slept through that. He went home, and I woke up and was like, oh, it's morning. I'm like, oh, I wonder what time it is. I look at my phone and I'm like, oh, God. Oh, no. Moving on to Hot Fuzz. I wrote down some things. I always think about doing this, and I always forget to do it when we do these marathons. Shaun of the Dead cost $6.1 million to make. One of the things I did find out about it was that they almost didn't get it finished. They were running out of money.
Oh, yeah.
And he had to go and borrow a bunch of money, and actually Simon Pegg loaned him a bunch of money, and he still refused to let him pay him back, because he was... the reason Edgar didn't go back to making TV was because he felt like that was giving up, and he wanted to finish the film.
Yeah.
Ended up making $30 million.
Good. And he deserves it. I mean, I think Shaun of the Dead is probably still his most popular movie so far, I would argue.
Yeah.
Or at least most people have seen.
There's no debate about it. Like, it was a success for what it was, and everyone likes it. It's got to be it's not my favorite one,
but it's still really great.
I know Edgar did a show, which you kind of mentioned, Spaced. Edgar also mentioned that he had to ask the fans of Spaced to come out and act as extras in the movie as zombies. He said if it weren't for them, the movie definitely wouldn't have gotten made. So
Yeah, it just goes to show how much people really like Edgar Wright, even back in the early days of his directing. But yeah, definitely check out Space. It's really good. Okay, so we're gonna move it on to Hot Fuzz. This is the one that a lot of people, it's like really polarizing because they're just like, because I think everybody expected Shaun of the Dead 2. Shaun of the Dead, but with cops.
Yeah.
And it's not. The dynamics are very different between Simon and Nick Frost's characters, and so I think that had a big part in it. But it might be my favorite though.
Shaun of the Dead's mine. This one, I loved it the first time I watched it. It was hard for me to watch it again because it's kind of a slower movie. It's still good.
Which is interesting because it's supposed to be Shaun of the Dead to zombie movies is Hot Fuzz to action movies, yet it's slower.
Yeah, it's really weird, yeah.
Alright, you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, we just watched Hot Fuzz.
Woo!
Yeah, did you have a good time?
Yeah.
So you had said before it's not your favorite.
Yeah, it's pretty slow. It ramps up, which is fine. But then I feel like the police force at the end, they're really too gung-ho all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Like, especially the Andes, who are very resistant and very...
They went from being like, you're crazy, to all of a sudden they're like, yeah, we'll do anything that you say.
The police chief is like, no, arrest him. And they're like, no, we're just gonna not listen to you now, out of the blue.
If he would have paced it out a little bit, they could have gradually had them do that. But at that point, we'd already been so far in the story.
Yeah.
It's still my favorite. I find it the most quotable. It's got so many stupid things in it. It's hilarious. It's super, super good. Just like with Shaun of the Dead, there's all the callbacks to their own stuff, things that show up, like foreshadowing. Like I said, it's like an autistic level of detail has gone into, I mean, not just Shaun of the Dead, but Hot Fuzz really, really showcases that too.
It feels less like repetitive, like scenes are less recalled than Shaun of the Dead. But as you mentioned, I feel like the details are much finer in this one.
And there's so many that you'll miss them.
Oh, by the way, the guy who plays Lurch or Michael in that movie, he
The
says
trolley boy?
Yarp. That's the Hound in Game of Thrones, which is pretty crazy.
And it's cool, all the people, like at one point at the beginning, you know, you've got, what's the guy's name? He was in Civil War. Martin Freeman, and then Bill Nye.
Did you say Bill Nye?
Bill Nye, Nighy.
Oh, I'm like,
he's
the science guy is not in that.
Well, maybe he's into science. No, the guy that played Philip, his dad, that's like legendary actor Bill Nye.
Oh, okay.
You have every British actor, because they're all in the same 5 people in all the movies in England in one shot in one scene.
If Benedict Cumberbatch was in it, then that'd
well,
be everyone.
This is before he was acting, I believe.
Oh, that's true.
Okay, so this is back on the Shaun of the Dead comment. Shane says most influential comedy zombie movie of all time. Debate. Yeah, it is. I would say not gonna be much of a debate because like, what's the other zombie comedy that's good? Zombieland.
Yeah.
There are people that say Zombieland's not a zombie movie. They don't consider it one because there's no zombie deaths.
You know, I can see that. It's it's a zombie setting, but it's not really a zombie movie.
But how is that not?
It's like a drama in a setting where there happens to be zombies.
Well, first off, no one established a set of rules that says you have to have X, Y, and Z to be a comedy, a zombie movie.
Now we should.
Well, I think if it has zombies in it. Would you say The Walking Dead is a zombie television show?
Yeah.
There are episodes where they don't deal with zombies.
I'm just gonna argue.
Okay. Yeah, this is definitely the most influential comedy zombie movie.
Yeah.
I think of any others other than I think Dead and Breakfast, but that movie was terrible.
Well, I think it's also important because I think it's the first parody movie that came out that was actually good since Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
Because then, you have Mel Brooks, then Nothing, and then you had the Not Another Teen Movie and Meet the Spartans, which is utter trash.
But I wouldn't even call it a parody movie. I think it just is a zombie comedy. It just is itself. It references and homages stuff, but it doesn't parody. That's just the way I see it. But
yeah, that's true.
Nick says, it's important to be selective when deciding which albums from your collection to use as weapons. I like the Bizarro group that they cross paths with, the Doppelgangers.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder if there's another group of podcasters out there called the Balkan Effort, like Baltic Effect is our podcast. But they wouldn't be podcasters. They would have a zine or something. So Shane says, I feel bad for the zine-based doppelganger. Nick says, they all live in France except for one. My doppelganger would be in Belgium. He's in Canada.
Oh. Gotcha.
Shane says, "Is your doppelganger Hercule Poirot? Hercule
Poirot?
I don't know.
I don't know.
That guy." And Shane says, "That's the only Belgian I know." Nick says, "I was going to say Jean-Claude Van Damme, but I can't pull that off, or he can't."
Was what you told me the girlfriend in Hot Fuzz was Kate Blanchett?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
in the scene, that's another thing too. There's a few uncredited actors. Kate Blanchett is the girl with the face covered, and she's in the jumpsuit. She's the cop at the forensic scene. Yeah, the ex-girlfriend. I know Peter Jackson was the Santa Claus that stabs him in that scene, and then the guy Garth Jennings, the guy that directed Hitchhiker's Guide, he was one of the crackheads in one of the early scenes. People liking Edgar Wright, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna watch Scott Pilgrim versus the World. So $6 million to make Shaun of the Dead, made $30 million. Hot Fuzz cost $12 million, they made $80 million. So big success.
Yeah.
Great success. Scott Pilgrim versus the World is his only flop.
Really?
It cost $90 million to make. It made $47 million.
Really that bad?
Well, and here's the thing. Scott, I resisted Scott Pilgrim for a long time because I didn't read the comics. I'm like, oh, it's about a comic book I know nothing about.
Yeah.
Why would I watch this movie? I had no idea all the like video game and music references through the whole thing.
I didn't even know it was based off of like what you said it was a comic book initially. Didn't even know that. I watched it because it looked interesting, and I think what made it interesting is the very same thing that turned people off to it, because it's very fast paced. It's very heavily saturated with references and things like that. So I can see why a lot of people wouldn't, but.
Well, it was also very poorly mismarketed. I mean, like and it's hard to do that. You know, there's other movies when you think back on like Princess Bride. Like, how do you market that movie? Is it a comedy? Is it a romance, fantasy, action? And with Scott Pilgrim, it's like, is it a comic book movie? Is it a video game movie? Is it like a music movie? What the hell is it?
Yeah, that's true.
I saw it and was like not interested. I also didn't know Edgar Wright directed it when it first was coming out. And then I was like laid up sick one day, and I was like online, and I was like, hey, this movie, and I started watching it, and I was like from the first second of Scott Pilgrim, I was blown away because it did the 8-bit Universal logo, and I was like, this is different, and I was hooked. And so it's you know, it might be my second favorite, maybe.
I think so. Shaun of the Dead and Scott Pilgrim are tied for me, at least for Edgar Wright anyway.
Right on. All right, well, we'll go watch that.
So we just watched Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I was looking up IMDb facts about it, and it's overwhelming. It's
Yeah,
like
that
reading a
one.
book.
Yeah, that one more so than his other ones, and the other ones are like reading a book as well. But it's all everything in it is a reference to something. Each X has a number that represents them. Like Todd has the 3 on his shirt, Lucas Lee has the 2 on his card, but the twins, they turn their amp up, and it's in another language, but it goes up to 11, which is this is Spinal Tap reference. They're also number 5 and number 6. I would have never put that together in a million years. So, and I don't know how much of that was taken from the comic or how much was Edgar. I feel like most of it was Edgar.
Well, another thing, you mentioned that it was actually a flop, financially speaking.
Yeah, it was. What did I say? It had $90 million to make, and it made $47 million.
Yeah.
And again, I was one of those people that I looked at and I was like, I don't know anything about this. I'm probably going to have to know the comics, enjoy it. Who is this for?
It's very niched because it's so packed with so many things. It's easy to see why it didn't do well. But for those who love it. It has such a huge backing behind it.
Yeah. Going back to one of our comments from Shaun, or one of our posts for Shaun of the Dead earlier, Aries Epiphany says easily one of my favorite movies for Shaun of the Dead, which is kind of the sentiment, you know, everybody really, really, really is passionate about Shaun of the Dead.
Favorite scene from Scott Pilgrim, from Lenny, the ending after Scott's encounter with Nega Scott.
He's like
just eating like what, an ice cream cone?
No. So they come walking out, like you think it's gonna be a fight, and really they just had a conversation. He's like, he's a nice guy, we got a lot in common. He was telling him about some restaurant that has a French toast. He's like, you get bacon? He's like, oh, I'm liking that.
God, it's so good. And I mean, like,
because he's such a negative person that the negative of him that gets along with very well. It's hilarious.
When it happened just after the biggest fight in the movie, and so you're expecting, it's so well crafted.
Well, and that's another interesting thing. Like, you can look at all the stuff on the surface, like the fighting, the comedy, all the references, the awesome music and everything. But what I like about it is that it can kind of make you reflect on yourself. Like I've kind of was always the guy that was like, oh, I'm the good guy, I'm the nice guy, and I get my heart broken. A lot of people cheat on me and things like that. But then there's a lot of other ways that we can be shitty people to people that we're in relationships with and not even realize it because we label ourselves as the nice guy. So even if you think you're that, you still might be a douchebag. Yeah. And he is. He's a fucking horrible guy.
He's a bad person.
But it comes off in the beginning as, oh, the poor, heartbroken guy. No, he sucks.
And even then, you still associate with him. You still see him as the protagonist, even though he's doing all these dick moves.
Well, he's human. He's got flaws, and that was the point of it, is for him to overcome his own demons and stuff. For Scott Pilgrim, Shane says, I went to see this movie with no idea about the plot or anything, except that it was vaguely video game related. From the minute the Universal logo showed up in 8-bit, I knew it'd be great. Did I say that earlier?
Yeah.
It was like, and I was just like, okay, this is something interesting. Matthew James says, this is my favorite comic book movie of all times. And then he says, however, my favorite Mary Elizabeth Winstead movie of all times is 10 Cloverfield Lane. Yeah, she's amazing in that. Shane... to Nick says, do you know the address for Amazon.ca? Nick's in Canada. And Nick says, trivia, the reward coins Scott Pilgrim get are loonies. In the first few they are, and then I noticed on this last watching, though in the big battle, there's a mix of them. And I think there's a couple of toonies in there. They're $1 and $2 coins I got. Oh. But then there's some other little ones mixed in there as well. Like little, I don't know if you guys have like a little copper one, or it might have been an American penny, I don't know. Next says, oh, and the Second Cup coffee chain was started by a guy who was formerly homeless. And he put a link to a Vanity Fair article, says exactly how Canadian is Scott Pilgrim versus the world.
Yeah.
So we're going on to The World's End. The one where I was just saying outside that, like, I always get defensive over this movie because people are like, man, it wasn't as good as his others. And I'm like, and then somebody pointed out that I also don't think it's as good as his others, but I really like it a lot. That's still, both of those things can be true. I just get stupidly defensive over things.
Yeah, I saw it. I don't remember it. It's a very forgettable movie. I remember not hating it. I remember enjoying it.
It's not as quotable.
Yeah.
And it's definitely, a lot of people get that way because it is the third in that trilogy, and it definitely references the other ones as much as, Hot Fuzz references Shaun of the Dead. World's End will reference the other two as well in little things that they do, and so it does kind of feel like a third in a trilogy, even though the stories have nothing to do with each other. And most of the time people lose steam by the time you get to a third one when you think about it.
Yeah, that's true.
But it wasn't a failure. I mean, it only cost them $20 million to make, made $46 million. All right, well, let's do it.
Yeah.
Well, we just watched World's End.
World's End.
You couldn't remember it, so how do you feel about it now, having just watched it?
I knew there was the apocalypse. I completely forgot that
the world ended.
Well, I remembered the ending. I remember he was like a rebel, and everyone was fighting for themselves. Yeah. I completely forgot that they were like robots with blue blood. And
yeah, I know.
That kicked it, which is like the whole movie.
When the first one happened, you were like, "What?" I remember when it came out, they had some promotions at some of the theaters where they were giving away like mouth lights. It was like a thing you put in your mouth that had like a LED inside of it or something, and so you could make your mouth glow when you opened it.
That's kind of cool.
Thought it was neat. Did you recognize the voice at the end of the glowing light?
No.
Bill Nye.
Oh, of course it would be.
It's a good one, but it's not.
It's far more outrageous, I think.
Well, the first movie's about zombies, though.
Yeah, but you kind of get eased into it. Whereas here, it's just a bunch of guys drinking, and all of a sudden, alien robots.
It's not as many jokes either. It's not as rapid fire. But you still get the amazing, symmetry between things that are being said, like the foreshadowing and stuff, and then it happens. What I thought was interesting is they shot the movie, so like the opening stuff when they're kids is 16mm. Then from there on out, up until when the blanks show up, it's 35mm 2perf. So that means like for every frame, it's got 2 holes in the side of the film, the holes that they use to pull through. Right. The rest of the film is 35mm 4perf. It's like the big Panavision Ultra view. So it's like it has 3 levels of getting better as it goes along, that's an interesting idea for a movie. So. Yeah. For World's End, Shane says this movie started out one way and quickly took a sharp left turn. I really dug it. I also like how it thematically connects with the rest of the Cornetto trilogy. Also, I always get it confused with This Is the End. He's one of the guys we podcast with, and that was one of our conversation. We were like, is it? He goes, it's called World's End, or is it that other movie? I'm like, which time? I was like, one with the end of the world. I was like, oh, what is that called? I was like, is that called World's End? Something like that as well? And we had to like, we forgot that This Is the End existed. So we had to look it up. I think that might be all of the new comments. I'm surprised we got any on for, World's End as well, just because, not as many people have seen it. And...
Some more love for Scott Pilgrim.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, it's starting to come out. A lot of jifes. A lot of
G-ifs.
Yeah, a lot of
G-offs.
One is obviously
the
chick X.
Chick. Oh, her going,
yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, obviously we like it.
She was great.
Yeah.
Just a spot on the back of her knee. How does that work? I don't know. When we're making out, it's okay. I don't want to hear about it.
Richard from work.
Hey.
He said that for World's End, it's good, but the weakest of the Cornetto trilogy.
Yeah, I think that's what we're getting at. I get so stupidly defensive. It is, and I understand that, but I'm like, but it's still good. I'm so stupid.
It was entertaining. Like, it wasn't bad. It wasn't hard to watch. It just, I don't know. It's hard to really put my finger on what makes it less than the other two.
It's not as funny. I can tell you right off the bat, it just doesn't have as many jokes. What I like is I think the action is fucking dope. I think he really knows how to shoot an action scene.
Yeah.
There was one comment for World's End on the Instagram. Joker, ha 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 ha, 79. That's amazing. Says, I love this movie. Reliving the glory days with androids and aliens mixed in. Probably ranked this one number 2.
Ooh.
That's interesting. Shaun of the Dead's still number 1. There you go. So we're going into the big one. You haven't seen this one yet, and I call it the big one because this has had the most love of any movie that he's done out the gate. Like, it hasn't had to have cult status or grow over time. And it's, let's see what I write down for this one. Cost 34 mil, so it's in that wheelhouse I was saying, the 20 mil or whatever it does well. Made $226 million.
Ooh, that was good.
All-star cast. The music is one of the stars of the film. It's kind of hard to not discuss the fact that Kevin Spacey is kind of a big part of it. He's, it might be his last movie he ever gets put out. So the upside though is that everybody else in it is acting their asses off. Like that kid that's playing Baby is amazing. Jamie Foxx, John Hamm. Who the hell is John Hamm's in it.
I have no idea who's in it.
The thing that blew my mind was, you've never seen Smokey and the Bandit, have you?
Nope.
There's a guy in... So the story of Smokey and the Bandit is, back in the day, it was illegal to bring beer to a certain point in the South from another point. They considered it bootlegging. Well, these two really rich rednecks wanted to, have beer at this big party, and they really just kind of like gambling and shit like that. So they're paying the Bandit to illegally bring a full truck of beer over to Georgia from Texas in 24 hours. Of course. It's like the flimsiest plot ever, yeah. Well, the two guys are big and little Enos Burdett, and they're dressed exactly alike. One guy's like 6 foot tall, and the other one's like, he's a very, very short person. He's in this movie, and I was like, oh my god, he's still alive. And I don't know why I would have thought he's dead. Like, everybody that was in Smokey and the Bandit's still alive. They're all fine. Like, Burt Reynolds is still alive.
Yeah.
So... And Sally Field, and I'm sure Jerry Reed. Maybe Jerry Reed is dead. I don't know. But point being is he's in it, and I went to go look the guy up, and he wrote a book and did a tour, and he called the tour "I'm Still Alive" because so many people thought he was dead.
That sucks.
All right, let's go check out Baby Driver. Okay.
Woo.
All right, we just watched every single Edgar Wright written and directed movie. Now we didn't watch Fistful of Fingers.
Fistful of Fingers was like a parody of Fistful of Dollars.
Yeah, and it was an indie film. It's like an hour long. It's hard to get your hands on. I know that he worked on Ant-Man, but he didn't completely write it, and he didn't direct it at all. We just finished Baby Driver. So it's your first time watching it.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
Well, everyone told me about the soundtrack. It's
it's good, right?
A really good music video.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I liked it. It was stressful, but like in a good way.
Stressful?
Stressful.
Well,
yeah.
That means you were likely involved. Let's go ahead and bring that up. We were talking about this. How was it you put it? You said, like, why is Kevin Spacey all of a sudden helping him?
Yeah, because he threatens Baby the entire time. It's like, yeah, you can. I'll tell you to join us again. I can break your kneecaps, do all this. He's very threatening. And then all of a sudden near the end, he's like, yeah, here you go. Here's your cassette. Here's
I was in love once. Here's money. Here's money I didn't have to give you.
Oh yeah. You're in love.
Here's the thing we argued about because of this person I could easily kill with a gun.
Oh, you have a girlfriend. That changes everything.
Yeah,
Here you go. I'll literally kill myself to protect you now.
Hey, let me ask you this. This is what I wanted to bring up, is that would you believe it if the role was reversed and it was John Hamm that tried to help him get away and Kevin Spacey ended up going after him in the parking lot and he ends up killing him that way?
Yeah, I think so. Because John Hamm character, there was camaraderie there, and it was kind of boiling up. And yeah, I almost wish that John Hamm would have just died.
It was almost set up that way, but maybe that's why he did it, is because it is a little more tragic. Because that is the story of Baby. It's had tragedy since he was a baby. Like, his parents died in the car wreck, and then he's just had like shit luck from then on out, and that's how that goes. So it would make a lot of sense that it would be that tragic.
I also kind of wish that Baby would have died. I like
Whoa!
I know. I think I like non-traditional ending. It wrapped up too tight. He's like, oh, serve a couple years, everything is good. I'm glad that some people like that he's all redeemed, but I like tragedy stories. I like it where it doesn't give you the ending that everyone would want. So
okay.
I would kind of like that.
I see. Okay, I don't necessarily hate that. I like abrupt endings as well. I like things that are off the beaten path, but at the same time too, I have a problem with killing off main characters, and here's why. I think that's people's way of very easily getting a shock value because they don't know how to write themselves out of a corner. The original ending to Clerks. You seen Clerks?
Yeah. Not the first movie, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, you know that there's a second with the same characters, right? Okay. So presumably they don't die at the end of the first one, right?
I didn't know they were supposed to die at the first.
The original cut of it, before it got released to the public, when it was still like making the rounds, I think right before it went to like Sundance and shit like that, the end of it had Dante, the main character, being killed. And this guy, Bob something or other, was talking to Kevin about it, and he was like, look, this is an amazing movie, and you grow to like get intrigued with these characters over 90 minutes, and then you just kill them because you don't know how to write a script.
Yeah.
And so he was like, you're right. And he ends it, and it's a fantastic ending. I think that if you're going to make us care about somebody, work really hard to get them out of that situation, and that's an interesting story. Oh, somebody did something bad, and now they're in a sticky situation, and then they die. Well, that's what fucking happens in real life.
Or how about this?
I think so. Okay.
Here's another alternate ending. Okay. Baby becomes Kevin Spacey's role. Like, he takes over the business, the family business.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's an interesting ending as well. Heck yeah.
Or Kevin Spacey takes off a mask and he's John Hamm.
Everyone's actually John Hamm, yeah.
Who then takes off his mask and is revealed to be his father.
And they do a job where they have to wear Don Draper masks.
Yeah.
The only comment I got on anything since the last time was for Baby Driver. SD Coley 11590. I actually know who that is, but I'm just going with the screen name. Baby Driver is, I think, supposed to be so good. It says spool good, but I think it means so good. Because my phone will autocorrect weird stuff like that all the time.
I got some more comments on Scott Pilgrim, actually.
Yeah.
More love for that.
Seems to be Scott Pilgrim and Shaun of the Dead seem to be the people's favorite.
Yeah. Ian said, I really like the part where he ties his shoes. Which
we were laughing so hard at that part.
It sounds like a joke.
And then yeah, it's amazing. And that's another thing too. We talked about music in this movie, but the music in that movie as well. There's lots of amazing cues and funny stuff that's done with music, and Baby Driver highlights that more than any other movie that he's done. So much so that there are scenes where Baby is, as he's walking down the street in the opening credits, he's walking past graffiti and stuff on walls that are saying what's happening in the song. And then later on with the gunshots timed to the music and stuff. There's one song in this movie that's actually in our Starfinder playlist.
I did not know that.
Yeah, a band called Focus made a song called Hocus Pocus. It's the one during the big chase, like after the robbery, and it's like hard rock in the ear. It's like all of a sudden yodeling. Amazing soundtrack, done well, fantastic movie, and a great way to end a marathon, I feel.
Yeah, that was good.
This is the opposite of the Home Alone one.
It was a very easy marathon.
Sure.
They're all just so good. They ramp up very well. It was a good marathon.
And we're only about an hour off from where I actually thought we would be. I think we made some good time. Some science was learned today. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for joining. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
That's pretty cool.
Anything before we go? Or
If I had to still had to pick a favorite out of all of those, I would still go Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead's your favorite?
If I had to rewatch all of them, I would say Shaun of the Dead.
I would bump Scott Pilgrim up and put it above Hot Fuzz after this watching.
Yeah.
Because it is so solid, it's so tight.
It's so fast paced.
But I might put Baby Driver at 2, maybe. Sorry, World's End, you're still at the bottom.
Oh, so bad.
I think it's funny. I think it's hilarious.